Hi, welcome to Herd Nerds. I'm here today with Kyle Shookman, and we got started talking about Angus, and then the next thing you know, we got into Wagyu, and he has raised some amazing cattle, both Angus and Wagyu, and he scored very well in the Triple Crown Steak Challenge, and I think Sarah Bailey had a lot to do with it too, but Kyle's the one we're interviewing today, so welcome, Kyle. I'm so glad to have you on board. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. And I'll interject, Sarah. This is Sarah's baby. I joined the team later on. I was in a little bit of an accident maybe 6 weeks ago, and we had planned to do this as a team. She's been off of work from the vet's office for 4 weeks. So she wasn't able to make it to this because of me. So now, now it's me. But I talk both cow languages equally well. So we'll be just fine. But it's Sarah Bailey started this monster
Yes,
20
and
years
I've
ago.
heard a lot about Sarah, and she's really a great person, and she's done a lot for the Wagyu breed. And I just met her recently, and I'm very excited to work with her and do some things with her too. So, let's talk a little bit about. First, we don't need to spend a lot of time, but I want people to know about your Great Angus pictures that you showed me and that amazing meat produced by your Angus.
So I I've been Angus raised Angus for a long time. And what I had done was just sell seed stock. It was never, I shouldn't say it was never meant for meat, but what my operation was, I sold bulls and heifers. And over the course of 20 years, just like when I talk to Wagyu folks, it takes time to get things dialed in and get things figured out. But we have the Angus pretty much dialed in, and you saw the meat. I can't explain the meat. You could go hunt it on our Facebook site. Just search "not Wagyu." Go to Jiyu Wagyu. We're Jiyu Wagyu, common spelling. Search "not Wagyu," and that truly is a 100% Angus steak. You actually wanted one of the steaks. I didn't know it was going to turn out that good, and sold that animal whole, and the steaks were gone by the time we got to this. But
Well,
the steaks turn out
I
like that
wanted to run that
out of the
steak
Angus.
through our research just to get the numbers on it because it looks so great. And I've never seen fineness of marbling like you had in that Angus. It was really amazing. So let's move on now. I, are those bloodlines the ones that help produce your Grand Champion F1 steak in the Triple Crown? No.
No, no. The Angus have always been. We've kept the two breeds separate. We have cattle at a few farms, and the Angus have their own farm. And it wasn't until I'm going to use some names here. We ended up buying a Wagyu Sakai bull, and to get data on that bull, we did breed my Angus to that bull. So that's the first time that had ever happened. But up until then, we had never touched the Angus with Wagyu. They were 100% Angus, and the Wagyu or the Wagyu world.
Well,
So
I
what
just
was your
wanted to know
question?
what you crossed with that to make that 24 steak as great as it was, that F1 24.
So the bull, uh, I'll back up a little bit. And the bull, a lot of people are going to know the bull, and a lot of people are going to know the name Ono. A lot of people know that bull's name, and that bull. I say I've never been. I'm 55 years old, and I've been around. I've raised cattle my whole life, and without a doubt, I've never been so sure of an animal in my life. He just doesn't miss. So I'm not telling stories. This is also on Facebook, but the animal that made that F1, Sarah, before her Wagyu life began, showed cattle. She was a cattle jock. She went to Denver. She won nationals, and which now it's a different story. She won nationals in Denver, Exarban, you name it. she won cattle shows all over the place with the big fuzzy cows that are
Mm-hmm.
call them pretty cows, but they're not supposed to make, they don't make meat. So the cow that made that meat is actually a cow out of a show bull named Heat Seeker. It shouldn't, it should not make meat, but we've run, that cow's had 4 calves that I've got records on, and every piece of meat looks like the one that won the competition. So she's actually, if I put it in simple terms, she's actually a junkie show cow that you would never think once about eating ever in your life. And that's the one that won
Well,
grand
let's
champion.
talk about that one that shouldn't have won anything because it won a lot. And so you got the grand champion F1. And for all you listeners that don't know what an F1 is, it is a Wagyu crossed with another breed of American cattle. And that was an Angus, correct? A black Angus that it was crossed with, Kyle? Yes.
The cow?
Oh,
No,
that's
Heat
right.
Seeker. Heat Seeker is a heat. If you yeah, if
Right,
you look up the
right.
Heat Seeker, he's a
Let's
mutt, and
not
I wish
tell
that
what
looked like
he is.
he's a mutt. I think that honestly, I think that
I
cow's got
know.
Santa gratuitous in it. I think it's got Hereford in it. I think it's got Charlet in it. And that's what happens when these show guys get together. They mix
Uh
this and
huh.
that and model around to try to
That's
get these
right. I remember that when
looking
I looked it
cows.
up. Mm-hmm.
So you
A
couldn't get
mutt.
any more of a mutt type of beef, yeah, than
Well, I tell you
that
what.
cow. And over and over and over again, 4 years, I think 4 years, she's produced meat
Well, Muttley
like
did
that.
well. Let me tell you. And so,
Yeah.
so she produced a calf, a steer that got number one in the carcass camera grading for F1, and that placed them in the top five of overall best entries in the F1 category. And she also got the top tenderness in the Warner Bratzler Shear Force test. So that's quite an accomplishment. But for me, the carcass camera judging IMF ribeye size, ribeye area and marbling fineness. That's very important. But the other most important part, I think, is the taste panel. And she won grand champion in the F1 taste panel. And that was just amazing how that steak did. And also being, of course, that makes sense, that she was also third in tenderness. No, number three was third in tenderness, and number 33 was fourth in tenderness. So all of your prod.
So you're naming off a bunch of our cows. I think we entered every competition there was, 3 of them. So, and we talked briefly on the phone. So really this is coming off of the cuff. So what you're telling me, I really am learning
Right. I have not
as we
announced
go
this
along.
yet.
So,
We talked on the phone, but I'm throwing it on him now in the podcast. But yeah.
yep, yep. So we're making
But
it up
here's
as we
the
go along.
amazing thing. So number 24, we're going back to the Muttley. We'll call her the Muttley Mama. But she's actually a queen in disguise. She also produced fourth place in fatty acid, this is very common to be in the top five in fatty acid when you have a high IMF score, intermuscular fat, and also in tenderness, having second place in tenderness. We've seen over time that animals that score high in the carcass camera and high in tenderness also do well in fatty acids. So those three kind of correlate. And that number 24 pulled off all of those categories very well. So I'd go out there and be real happy with that.
Oh, yeah,
And of course, the
we are,
bull
we
is
are.
the same bull for all of them, correct?
Yeah, there's gonna, there's gonna be some embryos. We've already talked about it, and I'm not trying to sell anything. Actually, she's never sold any of her genetics from her I'll call it her beginning line. Onos from her beginning line. we have sold some of that. Um, but yeah, we're gonna pull some embryos from that cow, which sounds odd, and cross and cross with Ono because it just. But and it's just not her. I mean, you've seen our other meat pictures that it just they're all it doesn't matter. I mean, he just it's crazy what he does. I give the cow gets half the credit,
He's
but
consistent.
there's something going on with him. Yeah, and in last year, let's go back to last year. We ended up last year as a whim. We were like, let's enter the Triple Crown Steak Challenge, and had a animal and just took that steak and threw it in. And I think we ended
Yes, you
up
were still
fifth
in the
place
top
last
5.
year. But but it again, Ono did spectacular at his lipids in that, and that got us to you're friends with her, Susan Duckett, which Clemson University is now presently there's calves on the ground building a herd of Ono babies just to study lipids. It's not a study against other bulls. Ono's the only bull in this study, and they're studying the health of the lipids because of
Well,
your
great,
contest.
and she's the one who performed our fatty acid profiles that year, and she did an excellent job. So, and you've entered, you go way back in entering the Triple Crown to get data on your cattle.
Well, Sarah had entered. It was pre you, and I think it was at the KC
Mm-hmm.
Royal. We can go way back. It was
Yes.
a meat
Mm-hmm.
contest at KC Royal. I'll throw some names out here. I think she got second place in that. Entered it a couple times. Got second place in that. Uh, I'll say it. Lost by 0.2% to um,
Well, let's say,
Patty
well, let's
Birdwell.
let's
Diamond
um
T.
let's make the distinction between the other, and I'm glad you brought that up, Kyle, because I want to make a distinction between like the American Royal taste test, and you see other taste tests in the US, and I want our listeners and everybody to know that wants to get information on their meat that the Triple Crown is the only uh competition that I know of in the world that test for as many categories as we test for beef quality. And so when you place in the Triple Crown in the top 5, that's really saying something because we have breeders from all over the United States that send their steaks in so they can see how their program is going, how their sires are doing, how their dams are producing. And I'm just really proud that you say, I don't know how you say it. I call it juju. That's how we say it in the South. I murder it. It's Jiyu. Excuse me.
Actually that was
Jiyu.
perfect. Which
Yeah, but I
Jayu
know
is
it
a
is
Jap. Yeah.
juju. So there we go. I
That's
always
a
call Kyle, hey, Juju,
yeah
what's up?
yeah, it's
Freedom.
Japanese for freedom, and we
That's
have
great.
yeah. So we have and we have some Japanese friends that absolutely love it because it's America, land of the free, and it's a perfect name. So
Yes.
people
And
watching freedom. You might,
well,
it sounds weird, but it's freedom, but it's
And that's
Japanese.
something I want to bring up too. Most people in the cattle business are very patriotic and agriculture, I mean, we grow food and we make beef for the USA and we are proud of what we do and proud to produce the quality of beef that I'm seeing producers produce in the USA. I'm extremely proud of it. And that's why I do this podcast because I want to show off what we have. And, your program is a show off program. And actually, everybody I have on the podcast are people that are really tops in the breed for producing quality beef. So I just want my hats off to you guys, you and Sarah, for what you've done and the quality you're producing because, when you have one steak in, it does really great. That's good. But you entered 3 and they all came in the top. That's really saying something. So Thank you for being such a great producer.
And and we do. I know you do it, and there's some people out there, but we field calls from all over the world quite a bit, actually. I like to talk, and we give solid information. I guess I don't have any hidden books. I'm not trying to hide a secret. If somebody calls us and they're looking for help, I'm confident enough. I'm not giving bad information. I will never give bad information, but I'm not going to hide information from you to keep me or us as number one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what I know. And if you ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, I'll find the answer. So you're doing a good thing. The Triple Crown is doing a good thing because you're supplying a lot of data. We're into it. We got into it, and actually, after we placed last year at fifth, and just threw a stake at it. Actually, all the animals that we butchered last year, we ate them all and had them cut inch thick steaks because we don't normally cut inch thick steaks. Just so I could hand pick, go through and hand pick and say
Mm-hmm.
this, and this, and hit all your categories. So we actually
Very
tried
good.
this year.
Well, winning the taste and tenderness, um, I want to know, can you divulge with us a little bit about your feed program? Because, those two things go hand in hand. And I don't know that people understand how much your husbandry and how you take care of your cattle affect the taste and tenderness of the meat that's produced. Do you want to talk about it, or is it the secret? A lot of
I
people don't like to tell
Yeah,
their
I
information,
could
but I'm just wondering, about your feed program.
I I get enough calls. I could, yep. I get enough calls that I could spend an hour on this, but the standard answer that I give everybody, it's not just the feed. I mean, it's the magical feed. And like I said, I grew up, I'm 55 years old and I've grown up around cattle my whole life, but Wagyu is more of an artisan thing to me, which I like. We still have the Angus, but the artisan part of the Wagyu, and I think it's the Rolls Royce of beef. So get everything out of it you can. But I think, and I'll tell everybody that there's four keys to making great Wagyu, which is genetics, feed, time, and management. And if you mess any one of those up, you still might end up with a good product, but maybe not as good as you should. So it's more than just what we feed. It's all four of those things: genetics, feed, time, management go into it. How you feed matters just as much as what you feed. I'm starting to wonder. I'll give credit. You called when the night you called. You're like, whoever is feeding your cattle, telling me did a great job. And I was like, well, I'm feeding the cattle, so tell me, but and we're also in a different situation than most of the people around the United States, I guess. I don't know how many people know how many Wagyu are shipped to the central part of the world. So western Iowa, South Dakota, Nebraska, because
Yes.
the feed is here. So there's a lot. I mean, there's thousands of Wagyu coming this direction to get fed, and we just happen to having farms that we make our own feed. And I can get into some other stuff on that, but we make our own feed. But the person that they go way back, Jim Scarvett, and I hope I didn't slaughter his last name, is the person that he knows how he feeds a lot of Wagyu, and he knows what he's doing. So it's his touch that this and this, and it's way different than I call it Western beef than Angus. You're after very low protein feed. We feed a couple different rations depending on the weight of the animal, not the age. It actually starts. It actually starts. If you want to get technical, it actually starts before the cow is even born or the
I
calf is
agree
even
with
born.
you
It starts in the
100%
third time.
in the
Marbling,
womb.
marbling is set in the
Yep,
third
in the womb.
trimester. Yep, in the third trimester. So give your cows a little bit something extra, and there's the start of. But that
Well,
falls under management, and management is hard.
Well, Kyle,
Management's hard.
let's
You
just
know how
talk
you
for
do it.
just a minute about that because for me that's a no-brainer. But here's something I was just astounded to find out that people don't feed their cows when they're pregnant. And I mean that's like, it's when you're pregnant, you have a baby that's taking a lot from you to make its life. A mother does. And so she, just say humans, they take prenatal vitamins, they eat, they do things for the growth of their baby, they do things for healthy bones, for healthy growth. And it's the same way with any animal that's pregnant. They need to be able to have great nutrition, so that they stay viable during the time of the pregnancy. And also you want that baby when it's born to be very healthy, the kind that come out and jump up. That's what I like. Yeah, that's
They're race cars.
and they run around
Yep.
sucking everywhere but where they're supposed to. They always go to the chest. I don't know what's up with that. I think the teats are in the wrong place because the babies are always up around the chest
I,
first. But, you know,
I tell the people that are just getting into it, build your fences lower. The guys that got the Angus are getting into it. I'm like, build your fences lower. They'll go
that's
under the fences, not
right.
over. So
But,
yeah. So, but I mean, it really is, and it, I've been I've been doing it long enough. The feeding part of it, um, I'm actually starting to wonder because we have our ration. If you want to know what it is, I'll tell you. I don't care. Um, but I'm actually starting to wonder if the ration. Okay, so I know that what you feed the animal, because you had that on a podcast earlier. What you feed the animal dictates how it tastes. So I understand that, but I almost wonder if you could feed any ultra low protein, because the goal of this isn't to push them. You want really slow growth, but I almost, in my mind, I wonder if I could feed them any low protein diet and end up with great marbling. Might not have the taste, but I think I could probably get. I personally think I could get the marbling out of them with anything. 12.5% crude protein is what our starting ration is. 12.5% crude protein. I think if I find any food that's 12.5%, I think I'll get the marbling. I might not get the taste. By the way, I attribute the taste to the oats. We feed a lot of oats. A lot.
Well, that's something to.
It's a really
Now,
simple
can you
recipe.
tell everybody where Jiyu is located?
So we are in Iowa.
Okay,
We're near
that's
Iowa
good.
City.
Well, just for your information, um,
Iowa City, Iowa.
we did research last year on the last 6 years and wanted to pinpoint where the top scoring Wagyu were located. The same way they do in Japan, like where Kobe beef comes from, and there's other places other beef comes from. But I was really surprised that the majority of the top notch tasting and contest winners come from the heartland. So, that makes sense because
We
of the
have we
feed you
have
have.
we and I'm going to give credit where credit is due. And I didn't know anything about this. Ken and Kevin, but Ken Wagyu Sakai Incorporated. I didn't know there was such a thing, but there's terrier, and terrier is a French term for wine. And it comes down to simple, not as simple, but he broke it down. I talked to those guys quite a bit, but Ken broke it down into it's as simple as the minerals in your soil where your cattle are at, the mineral that is in your water that your cattle drink, the feed that you feed if it's coming off of your farm, all has its own unique flavor or terrier. So the beef that you're getting from us has its own unique taste profile. And I think we're going to get into it, but I think we won every taste contest in the three categories of your competition. And I attribute it to oats. I mean, people are going to go out and start buying, but there's people, and that's the problem when I talk to people. Some people can't get oats. I got people that drive, seriously, they'll be watching this video because they know it's going to happen, but they drive 250 miles to
Well,
drive
I
over
mean,
here to
it's
get
like
feed
me.
because they can't, because they won't get
I
oats. They
can't
can't get oats.
I can't get
They want the
alfalfa,
oats.
where I'm at. I can't get, forage like, places that have better ground. But
But
go ahead. Sorry.
we don't feed alfalfa. We don't feed alfalfa. We feed hay, or we feed good quality
Well,
grass
that's
hay, no alfalfa,
right.
because I
But
don't
that's
want the
all
protein.
I get. I can't get alfalfa. That's what I'm saying. I can't get alfalfa. I can just get
Oh,
hay
okay.
down here. So there's areas where we can't get, certain items. We can't get barley. We can't get any barley. It's, too cost. It's, well, now oats are high too, but I mean, I can't get oats. Oats are high.
Oats are crazy high. Oats, and I think rumor on the street. This is rumor, but I think oats and barley are twin sisters. So I think oats and barley cause
Yeah.
about the
Well,
same flavor. But I'm not a feed scientist, but I'm pretty sure I
well,
heard
we're
that
doing some
somewhere
interesting studies.
from
I
a
don't
good
want to
source.
tell anybody what they are yet. I'm dying to, but I have to wait till we get a little bit further into it before I say it. But it could be that certain flavor profiles due to fatty acids, let me tell this right, due to the lipid content, the molecular lipids cause certain flavor profiles. And it's maybe related to the melting point of fat, which we're doing a lot of research on that this year.
So
And I can't wait to tell everybody about it.
so are we? I don't know, but are we talking the dirty word of 50/50? Are we talking about
I can't
STD here
say right now
a little
because
bit?
we're not.
I think we are. I mean, I'm learning. You haven't told me, but I mean, there's this distinct line of
Mm-hmm.
believers and non-believers, and I will tell you, it's been pounded in. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but it's been pounded into my head. I call her my CEO, Sarah. SCD matters, and she hunts the SCDAAs and high, and she's like, even if it only matters this much, I want that
Well,
much of an edge. So she hunts, and I don't know how this happens, and you know this because we've talked about this. The millions of way of genes can line up. It's the first one we've ever seen. We have a full blood. I don't know how we got a full blood like this, but he's an AA1, or sorry, misspoke. He's a VV1, and you're excited about that one
that's
because you're
right.
like,
I
I
want
want
to
to speak
test
from
it.
him, and I promised you that I would. And we're as excited. I mean, it was like, what do we do with this one? And then it was like, we're going to run a competition. We're going to see if they're a VV1. How do we get a VV1? We
Well,
have a VV1.
I would love to, and
So
that's the thing. If you listeners out there are breeders and you do have things like what Kyle's talking about, please call me and send it in. We will test it because we're doing a big study. We're doing a big study this year because actually there's not a lot of studies done and there's just a lot of talk and we need to get down to the nitty gritty on what's what. And so we're the fatty acid profiles this year we're doing a major study on, and we're also doing a study on red carcasses and black carcasses. So do kind of some correlations on that because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think we need to get it straight, and it needs to be done in a scientific setting by universities and research institutes rather than just people saying, yeah, here's a picture of my carcass. And this is, I mean, we really need to get it down pat and we need numbers. So if any of you would like fatty acids done on your cattle, I don't know how long we can do them for free, but for the project right now, we're calling people to we need fatty acid samples. Please call me and I'll tell you where to send them because we're doing a great big study on that. And it'll be the first of its kind and it'll be on USA Wagyu beef. And I think we need that too. So that's where I'm going with it. So you guys drop me a call and let me know if you, right now we can do them for free because we've got a little grant going, but we'll see how long it lasts, but we need as many as we can because I don't want to have a study of 30. I want a study of 1,500 or 2,000. You know, that's where I want to go with it. The more the
The
merrier,
more the
and
merrier.
and it makes it mo better.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I mean, the dirty words EPDs, and that's, oh, I have these talks all the time. The dirty words EPDs and EBVs in Australia and America, and the numbers that are behind them. And then I jump from the Angus Association where there's
Millions.
millions. I mean, just literally millions. Everybody's excited to turn in their data on the Angus. I shouldn't say everybody, but millions of data points to get. So, but you got to start
You
somewhere
got to
too. I'm
start
not knocking.
somewhere,
You got
but
to
you
start
also
somewhere.
have to, for goodness sakes, look at what you're looking at. So here's what I've seen on some EBVs in Australia. So there's this like feeding frenzy of Australian genetics, right? And then you go, first thing you need to do before you make up your mind to spend all that money is to go see how many progeny made up that, you know, EBV. And then secondly, you just got to look, it's so simple, folks. You have to look at the carcass. You have to look at the meat that the animal has actually produced, whether it's a photograph or whatever. You've got to see what the carcass really looks like, and it can't just be one carcass. It's got to be carcasses out of this particular animal before you should make that decision, because there's semen here, and I shouldn't get on this soapbox, but I'm going to say it because I'm USA. There's semen here in the US that US breeders have that are producing carcasses that I have seen that are superior to some that I've seen produced by top sires. So when you go to select a sire and a dam, you need to really look at the carcass data, because the truth is in the carcass, not in the probability that it's going to produce a carcass. The truth is in the actual carcass. Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
And I'm going to jump onto that because that's part of my talk. And he's not going to be mad that I say this, but I've had conversations with Matt McDonough of, the head of Australia, about EBVs and EPDs. Um, where was I going with my thought?
About the
Um,
carcasses.
it's Oh, I know. I remember now. I had to get my train of thought going. I'm going back to my Angus, and I've been doing the registered Angus forever. And the American Angus Association there's their EPDs, but they've had this really cool graph, and pretty much for the last 30 years, you look at the graph and you want marbling further to the right, so it's pretty easy. You pick out a bull that has high marbling and you disregard everything else because you're just trying to move marbling, ribeye area, whatever, to the right and make this gigantic animal. So I'm speaking now of the Angus Association. I speak Angus really well. If you talk to any of the top folks in the Angus Association, they'll tell you, and this is the conversation that Matt and I get into some, and I know he gets mad at me, and he's going to see this and probably get mad, but the American Angus are kind of messed up now because everybody, and I'm going to use another person's name that's great in the Angus world, Isaiah. Um, you may know Isaiah, but I don't know that the Angus will ever come back. Isaiah told me he doesn't know if the Angus will ever be able to make it back from everybody just shifting numbers to the right and not paying attention to maternal traits. So if you look at the Angus now, they got a problem with feet. They got a problem with their udders. They just got an overall problem. And I don't know if you're going to be able to switch that back. And it's really my fear. I'm not knocking so much the EPDs or the EBVs, but it's my fear that you just look at the graph, because it's really easy to look at the graph and move the numbers to the right and not pay attention to anything else except I'm going to move the numbers to the right and be able to say that it's in the top 5% of, now I'm back to Wagyu, top 5% of marbling fineness. That's going to catch up to you. I think there's a lot of Wagyu running around. One of the biggest Wagyu problems, Wagyu Sakai, I won't say it, but I'm going to go high tail heads. I mean, the Wagyu's tail heads are so high. I mean, like really, really high to like, I'm just going to say it to like, I'll say it cleanly, that the cow is pooping into its vagina.
Thank
I
you
mean,
for that,
I
Kyle.
would breed away
Thank you
from
for
that,
that.
but, but for, if you're just looking at the graphs moving numbers, you're not paying any attention to that stuff. You're just moving numbers. And then you're not paying attention to, seriously, how many, we just talked about numbers. How many animals does it take to make a good data set? So when you look at the EPDs or the EBVs and the accuracy is 10% or 20%, do you pay attention to that number? I'll tell you, I won't use a name on this one, but there's a very high breeder that won't look at them until won't look at them until they're at 80%. That's just when they look at them. They're not using them for breed. I'll look at it when it hits 80%. But again, we'll go back to, I think they have their purpose, but I think you need to know how to use them. But I don't think it should be your sole purpose. But you got to turn in data to get more. And is it 100 that makes it right? I know there was a big swing not too long ago in a milk score I saw, because a whole bunch of progeny were turned in Australia. There was a huge swing. So, which you need to turn the animals in to do it. So I'll get off my soapbox, but that's my EPD, EBV. I don't think I did any damage, but it's messed up the Angus. And I'm afraid it's going to mess up the Wagyu in 30 years because it's messed up the Angus.
Okay, well, that's good that you expressed your opinion, and I try to stay neutral, but I get on my soapbox too. I know.
That's neutral. I mean,
That's neutral.
not,
That was neutral.
that was
That
a
was
neutral
good.
answer.
That was good. And we haven't. That's right.
I whacked the Angus. I whacked the
And we
Angus.
haven't cussed yet, so we're doing good.
Yeah, that was a fear too.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about. You have a meat shop too. Do you sell beef? Do you sell your beef? Because I would like to buy some.
We sell beef. You don't have to buy it. Well, yeah, you have to buy it. Yes, we do. We ship. We use. People ask all the time. We use 3 different processing plant. Well, use 3 different places: state, federal. One's an actual plant. One's a lockerish plant, federal, and then a state inspected place. But the state of Iowa, I can't tell you what it is. I think that, and you might know more. The USDA, there's a problem with getting meat out, and they're going to state plants and letting state plants be certified to do USDA, because there's not enough USDA plants around. So there's, I don't know, 10 or 11 plants now in Iowa that were state inspected that can now do federal. Anyway, we sell out of the farm, we sell to restaurants, and we ship meat. I have discovered that my number one hate is shipping meat. I'm like, restaurants are fine. Restaurants are fine. That's great. People that stop out are great, but man,
Oh, I know.
you do it though. I mean, you do it. You do it. So yeah. We'll just send you a little care package.
I tell you, shipping We let's not even go there. How about that? It's just a nightmare if you're not a big company that ships on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah, we use dry ice, and our dry ice supplier shipped. They used to do big cubes, and now they went to little chunks like ice cubes, and that's created a problem. And now, yeah, it's
By the
yeah,
time,
it's a nightmare.
yeah, the
But you
but the
do have it. I
cost,
mean,
but if somebody just wants a couple of steaks, I mean, it's ridiculous. The shipping cost, and then the dry ice and the packaging, and then the fact that no longer will any shipment be guaranteed if it's perishable. So, I mean, you know, whoa.
I yeah. Oh, we got caught up in that's a really fast story. Yeah, we knew that one, and I guess if you're going UPS, UPS won't cover it unless it's next day air. So don't put any more insurance on it than you have to. But we had a seven. By the time it was done, we had a um, 7 week aged from Thunder Ridge Packing Plant. 7 week aged animal for Christmas. We ended up shipping out about $5,000 worth of meat. It all ended up in Puerto Rico and sat on the runway of Puerto Rico for 2 weeks in a semi, and it wasn't insured. So then we ended up have turn around and replace all that meat to the people. So it was actually a $10,000 turnaround to find out that even though you were paying for insurance, it's not covered unless you go next day. Or so
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that was a
I
big one.
think everybody
That was a big
probably
one.
has those stories in their, you know, little backpack of shipping information. So, okay.
Wait, I'll give you one more. I know we're way off this subject, but if something's going through Greensboro, North Carolina, do not put a sticker on it
Oh,
that says
yes.
Wagyu because it's going to disappear. The label, everything disappears. If anything, if we know something's going through Greensboro, North Carolina, there will be nothing on the box because your box, the number just it disappears into thin air. You have no number, and then UPS is back here saying, telling us like, well, it's because they stole it. It's like, oh, at
Do
least they're
you know
honest
I
back here.
actually had that happen to me? I sent briskets to a company in Chicago, and I sent like, I don't know, 10 briskets. It was a heavy, big shipment, and it was beef, Wagyu. And when he got it, he only got 8 briskets. And I said, "Can you send me a picture of how it was packaged? Because I packaged it before I took it there, and they had opened it and repackaged it minus 2. So, yeah. So hey,
Two.
they could have taken them all. So I
It
guess I
happens.
need to be thankful that he got 8 briskets.
There you go.
Yep.
Keep your sticker off of it. It's
But
yeah.
anyway, that's just goes with the territory. But Kyle, I'm very happy that you did so well. You and Sarah did exceptional, and always do send in great meat. And that's why I wanted you on the podcast, because I just love that number 24, that F1. When you see, and I want to tell you this, I've seen over the past 6 years the greatest increase in quality in the percentage animals, F1s and F2s. But, I've also seen a lot of quality in the full bloods as well. I just, don't feel that the full bloods are getting what they should for the carcasses that they're producing. I just wish we could get paid for the grade, kind of thing. And that's a problem I see. It really bothers me, and I hope we can transition to, um, being able to get full blood products up to what I think the carcasses are worth, and see people actually get paid for that great genetics and great feeding programs and the little extra time that they spend with the Wagyu carcass.
Uh, one of the things that I tell people two that are seeking advice, we don't see, we don't lie. Um, we don't see that big a price disparity or difference between our F1s and our full blood stuff. Just simply because, and you know it because you've seen it, because the marbling is not that much different in the two. The fat's pretty similar. I don't know if we're going to talk about the other two that we sent in or not, but it's we're doing pretty good at the F1 stuff. And I don't know. He said it in public. He said it. I'll say it. He said it at a Wagyu convention. He sat on a board, and that was Dave Dreiling. And I was a big proponent before then of label everything full blood. If it's full blood, it's full blood, it's full blood. But he brought up the idea that maybe we needed to have bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, depending on the intermuscular fat. It didn't matter if it was F1, it didn't matter if it was full blood. And he was also honest and is like, we've killed a lot of full blood animals that aren't making 13% intermuscular fat. And that takes a man to say that. He was being honest, but when he said that bronze, gold, silver, I was like, you know what? And then I started getting behind it. It's like, that's a really good idea because you're paying for the marbling, you're paying for what the meat is, and you just kind of backed it up with, if you make great marbling F1, the lipid stuff is there along with it, along with the taste and the tenderness. So I've shifted my thoughts, and I don't have any power to do anything, but I've still shifted my thoughts and how
Well,
labeling could
I
go.
want to argue with you a
Maybe
little bit on that one because I
that's all right.
do not believe that F1s, I haven't seen it. They may be out there, but people aren't sending them in to me. Uh, there are exceptions to every, thing, but I'm talking about the majority of F1s, okay? The average. I've not seen F1s score as high as full bloods in the once you get past the 45% IMF, I've not seen that happen. Um,
Yep.
so let's I do agree that if you should get paid by the grade. I do agree to that. But, also, um, I've had, we talk about tenderness. We need to do a little bit more study on that before I say what I've got to say. But I'm telling you, when I eat a full blood, over 40% IMF, I'm one of the rare people that love the 55 to 60% IMF, because give me that, give me that it's
Well, then
it,
you
it's a
then, but
it,
then
it's
that's
a
a then that's it.
sensory
Yeah.
experience when you eat full blood wagyu in this that high marbling. I mean, I love that, but I know that, like, Mr. Jim, my ranch manager, the guys that work for me, they like that they like that F1 steak. They want that big slab of meat on their plate. And, okay, that's what makes us different. But um, I just don't want to say
We've talked
that,
that we've yeah, your number one guest was Pete and Sarah. We've talked about this, and Sarah got her girlfriend hired at Pete's place to run his ranch. That was Brenda, and they would go have parties, and Brenda would always, I think it made Pete upset. I don't know. Sorry, Pete, but maybe you weren't upset. Um, she would always pick but I think that comes from Iowa. She
yeah,
would always pick the F1 because that was, she liked the more chew, but that's a personal thing too. And I like the full bloods. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like it. Oh, I go eat no roll stuff. I mean, I'll eat anything.
I
So
do
I like
too.
it
I
all.
like it all. But I mean, if someone said, Desi, what would you like? I mean, if you could have anything, what would you like? I would like full blood wagyu over, you know, 48 to 65% IMF. I just like to have that.
And then would you add to that? I would like it to be a
No,
eight
because
or
I
nine.
haven't had. I have. I know.
I'm just
No,
fishing.
I'm
I'm
not
seeing
gonna.
what I can
You're
get out of
trying
you.
to. I got where you're coming from. No, I'm not gonna say that because I've never had a bad Wagyu steak with a high IMF percentage. I mean, I've had some that tasted better, that had a better flavor profile. But when you're in a 40% up IMF, your fatty acids are there. But let me tell you this: I have seen an F1 steak that didn't win in marbling, didn't get anywhere with marbling, very low marbling, that had one of the highest fatty acid profiles of healthy fats. So that's why I'm doing the study I'm doing, because I really think, and people can think I'm crazy because I'm wondering if I'm crazy, but I think there's a genetic component to it too, like we talked about. And I want to find out what that is, because you got this, and it was a red Angus cross, or full blood, not full blood, pure, whatever you call them, registered red Angus with a full blood, okay, purebred, yeah,
Purebred.
at
Yep.
red Angus with a full blood black Wagyu bull, and produce the highest fatty acid level of good fats, nothing but the good fats that I've seen in a long time. And it blew my mind. I actually ran the test 5 times and made it till somebody told me I was getting on their nerves, because I kept saying, I want to run that again. I want to see that again. I want to make sure this is, I kept thinking there was something wrong with that, because in my mind, it didn't make sense. But we did run it and it's verified.
I have never thought of this until right now, and you just made me think of it. But that Angus that you saw the picture of is still walking around, and I need to probably put Ono
Yes.
on her just to see what would happen with a calf. That's the bad thing about Wagyu too. It's a
I
4 year
know.
process before you know what you did. But put Ono on that specific cow. And by the way, that line of cow, they all do that. Um, GT shear force.
Mm-hmm.
You do a shear force test. So that actual line of cow is, and I didn't name it. It's a shear force is the name. Like, I don't know, pick any Wagyu name you want, but shear force is the one that's really
Mm-hmm.
making the meat that you saw out of the Angus. So, but that would be an interesting one to put Ono to. And you know, Dr. Duckett approached us on the semen thing. All I really know is it's a lipid test. People ask what's the test? It's a lipid test. I really don't know. I don't care. I mean, I care, but what I'm trying to say. I don't know what the test is. I don't know what she's, other than it's a lipid test. I don't know what she's
Well,
testing for.
yeah,
I should like
it's
ask her.
probably like what we're doing, every possible thing we can get out of that, and trying to draw correlations, because when you have something that happened, like with this particular non-marbling, I mean, it was not a if I looked at it, I wouldn't be impressed with the steak that had the highest fatty acid rank of healthy fats. I mean, it did make sense to me, because one of my questions was, okay, so we have a 41% IMF steak and we've got a 28%, 34% IMF. And so you have more lipid to draw these conclusions from. So how does this non-marbling steak, come up with this great healthy fatty acid profile? And so, that's what we're working on.
Sarah, Sarah instills a lot of stuff in me, and that also, and maybe you were there for that, but Takeda told a story about it was basically an SCD lipid test, but he was ashamed of an A5 that he gave his guest because the taste wasn't there. And we do have talks with folks a lot about, say you had a BMS 10 steak, a great marbling steak, and this is getting into your SCD and your lipids, but maybe it didn't have the great fat to it, and you had a BMS 6 steak, just like you were talking about. I don't know, I'm just making up scores, that had low marbling, but it
The
had
right
a
fats.
great lipid, right? And you did not show the person the steaks and just cooked them and said, which one would you like the best? They're probably going to pick the BMS 6
Mm-hmm.
because of the taste. So it's the exact same thing you're saying, but I've been drilled with that for
And
10 years
the
now.
flavor profile comes from the fat too, because the fat carries that flavor profile. So I mean, that's just yeah, and what you
And
feed
what you
it.
feed it. And your yeah, and your one podcast, that was a bad one. I'm not making fun, but the wagyu that tastes like tuna or fish, I was just like, oh,
That was true.
I yeah. So, but
That's
yeah, you
exactly
are what you
right.
eat.
So,
So that is
but
bad,
anyway,
bad,
so
bad.
I think we could leave on that. You are what you eat, right? So eat great quality wagyu that has really gone through the gamut and come out on top.
Wait, before before
Okay.
before you leave, because I don't know, and maybe you can't say, and if you can't say, don't say. But where did our other
Okay,
ones
so
end up?
your number 3 was number 1 in tenderness. So who was that? That was a full blood.
So
So you were also in the full blood category. Number 3 was number 1 in tenderness. And your number 33 was also 4 in tenderness. So you got 2 places in the top 5 in tenderness.
how they do it? How they do in taste,
No, it
taste
was
and
just
tenderness?
tenderness. Now you got grand champion with your F1 in taste.
Okay, how they all
Um,
do in lipids?
okay, your
I'm learning.
that 24, that same steak from the not so uh attractive mother heat seeker
From the heat
from
seeker,
the heat
from the heat
seeker
seeker
bull.
bowl. Yes.
You were in the
Yep.
top 5. You were in 4th place in fatty acids. So I mean, all around it was a really great steak. Top 5, top 5.
Okay.
So really
Good. Good. Good.
great. And thank you for entering. Is there
Thank you,
anything
ma'am.
else you want to tell us?
Well, that's why we entered. Well, we enter because we enter because you want to see how you compare. You enter because you want to see how you compare to everybody else. But the other thing that we also do is we do trade stakes. I'll plug. I mean, Janelle Henschel. I'm a user. Janelle Henschel had an old. I don't want to say old. It was a cow that was over um, 40 months old, and something had happened to it. She ended up eating it, so it was grass fed. So I'd never had grass fed wagyu, and you get that big argument. It was. She sent. I got rich. She sent us New Yorks. They were great. Diamond Tree Ranch. Just, I mean, we trade steaks just to see how other people, and you get the pleasure of doing it in your competition, but we trade steaks around just to try what other people have, so you know how you compare. So throw in your competition is good because you see how you place, and you get all the other information, data points along with it. But then you truly know what you're doing.
And I'll make a
So
confession. So when we do the taste panel, they have a thing they cut out from the eye of the ribeye for every steak for the taste panel. And that leaves the spinalis. And so all of us are we're like dogs.
you,
And they're just grabbing pieces. And, there's a waiting line of people outside the door wanting to know if we have any samples. And I'm like, we lock the door while we're in one section where they cook them, and then of course the other section is pass through, so the people that taste them never see us. But what I loved about Auburn University too is they had state of the art. I've never seen this. Every place I've been, you have to put the plate through the little slot and the people don't see it. And the room is all red lighting so they don't get any influence on the color of the meat or anything. It's just everything's gray, with that red lighting. And so, but on the other side, there's some spinalis cooking going on at the end. And but I make sure I know everybody's steak so I can taste all the contestants' steaks.
Well, and that's a. I mean, out of your test, that's the only subjective part of it. Every other test that you're
Right.
running is
Mm-hmm.
machines that can't go wrong, and I would imagine that you're cooking the steaks
Yes.
individually, so their fats don't.
Fats.
So they're. I mean, they're not
Well,
all
they
cooked
have
on
a
the
way
same
they
grill.
do it at Auburn, which is different from the other schools I've done it at. They had a what do you call it? A raised, the rack, a rack, the clean rack went in, and the steak was on the rack, so it never touched the a pan, or it never touched any fat from another steak.
It never touches
No,
another
no,
fat from
because
another steak, or
if you cook two steaks together, you just forget having you know, the flavors are going to mix. The fat, because the fat, is going to be there getting in under and around the other steak. So we do them, and they thread them with the temperature probe so they are all cooked at the same exact temperature. I mean, it's really scientifically executed, and I was so impressed. And Auburn has a big leaderboard where you can read the samples that go in. You can look at any time at the leaderboard and see, like, um, Jiyu Wagyu, or somebody else, or whatever, Jiyu Wagyu or somebody else, and and you can tell by looking at the leaderboard when a person finishes their little tidbits of taste morsels, and then the thing automatically opens and they take it back, and then the next one slides in, and then the next name shows up, so you can keep up with every single one. And when they finish, it's all computed and done, and it comes out on the panel, the ranking, numerical ranking for each one. It was amazing. I love working at Auburn. So it's great.
I'm gonna throw one other thing. I'm gonna throw one other thing out there because you talked about it. I know, and I've talked about him a little bit, but there's a person in Australia that wants Ono in Australia to compare him to some Australian bulls. He wants him in a competition there. So we'll see if we can get him some CSS semen to get in an Australian
That would be
competition
great.
over there. So that will be interesting too, because you were talking about some of the
Mhm.
bulls and the names of the bulls, and there's a reason probably he wants that bull over there to see what he actually, because that's kind of the other crazy thing about, if you would come see Ono, he's 1,450 pounds. He's just this little thing of a bull.
How old
Um,
is he?
but I don't care if his carcasses are F1s to purebreds are on full blood cows. You're going to end up with heifers that are hanging weights of, light ones would be 950. I would say your average hanging weight is 1050 to 1,200 pounds, heifer or steer. You'll go up to 1,300 pounds. Doesn't matter if it's an F1 or a full blood. So he's, for a little itty bitty bull,
How
he's
old
cranking
is
out some
he,
stuff.
Kyle?
I don't know what.
He's
He's
8.
8. He's 8, and I'll give credit there too. Yeah, he's mostly, because it goes back to the start. He's MFC and
Mhm.
CHR, and then Sarah put 2 twists on him, and he was never meant for anything other than to be a cleanup bull, and he's turned out to be this crazy thing. So, and that was that yeah. So it's just nuts. It's nuts. But he MFC, and so yeah, he's an MFC CHR with two twists in between from Sarah, but just a little bowl, nice as nice can be. But man, does he eat
Yep, that's
huge
great.
carcasses,
That's great.
huge
Well,
and fat. So anyway, I wasn't trying. I'm not trying to. I didn't. I was going to come into this and not say too much, but I mean, it's
well,
just nuts.
I
So
really had a good time talking
right.
with you on this podcast, and my hat's off to you and Sarah for what you're doing over there, and the Ono. Say hello to Ono for me, and so I thank you all for
We
listening,
will.
and we hope to see you again. And we're so glad you joined us, and thank you for listening to our podcast. Have a great day.
Thanks for having.
Okay, bye
Thanks for having us
bye.
both.